Good afternoon, everybody. This is Steve Fletcher with a trumpet for my people. Today's February 8th, 2024. And I wanted to put some pieces of information together for you. I had mentioned to you that I was going to be sharing this with Daniel Taylor, and I did share this with him. He doesn't necessarily see what I am seeing on this, so he didn't really have anything to add to what I am sharing. So this could be something that just me is seeing, or maybe it's just a nothing burger. We will have to wait and see, but I am going to just share with you this information from my perspective, and then let the Lord take it from there. So as we were watching January 11th, okay, we saw, first of all, we saw that this was the middle day of all eclipses, front and back, before and after, middle day of all eclipses. We went back all the way to 1948. Every eclipse has a match on the other side of January 11th by the exact number of days. This has to do with all lunar eclipses, as well as all solar eclipses are connected to January 11th. Okay, that was the first thing. Now, if we look back at what we were watching last year, and we saw that in between eclipses, there's a match at an interval of 2,598 days also. Every 2,598 days there's a match on eclipses, and this is the number of Hanukkah. Okay, 2598 is Hanukkah or Chanukah, the feast of dedication, consecration, dedication. Okay, so what do we do if we put this sign of January 11th together with this sign of Hanukkah? Then what we get is we have this one, there's only one match from January 11th that would fit this double conjunction of signs. January 11th together with the eclipses that are 2,598 days apart. 1,299 days before January 11th and 1,299 days after January 11th. Now, first of all, what's interesting about this is that both of these eclipses are over Israel. Okay, so first and foremost, this is a huge part of this, a very important sign within this. Both eclipses are over Israel. Okay, both of these are total solar eclipses. One is an annular solar eclipse. The other is a total solar eclipse. June 21st, 2020. This is the summer solstice in the middle of the beginning of the pandemic in June of 2020. And this is a 7-year conjunction. 2,598 days works out to be a little over 7 years. And this takes us to August 2nd, 2027, and a total solar eclipse. But here we have within this a very interesting detail that if we take January 11th as a 40-day warning, because this was one of the biggest signs we've seen to date, is this a marker in time? Is this a moment in time that sets off a final countdown? That's what I'm seeing. Then we have a 40-day interval that if you go from January 11th, 40 days inclusive, it's February 20th. And if you go from February 20th, 1,260 days inclusive, then it takes you to the August 2nd, 2027 total solar eclipse. And so, why is February 20th important? And why is the 1,260 days important? Well, February 20th on the Hebrew calendar is the 12th day of Adar. Okay, it's the 12th day of Adar. And the book of Esther shows us that the extermination event of the Jews is planned for the 13th day of the month of Adar. Okay? The 13th day of the month of Adar. Esther 9:1. Now in the 12th month, that is the month Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put into execution, in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them. Okay, so this sign here of January 11th, going forward 40 days, brings us to the 12th day of Adar. And according to the book of Esther, the planned execution is the 13th day of Adar. In other words, this is the last day before the planned execution. In other words, this could be the day of our escape before the planned execution on the 13th day of the month of Adar. And this is the 12th month and the 12th day. So on the Hebrew calendar, this is 12/12. Just like my sign was 12/12. Then the 1260 days, if it starts here on February 20th, going forward 1260 days to the August 2nd, 2027 total solar eclipse, Revelation 12:6 reveals 1260 days as the time of the tribulation when the woman is taken into the wilderness. Revelation 12:6, and the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. So January 11th plus 40 days takes us right to the beginning of Purim. Remember now that there is a difference in calendars. The Hebrew calendar shows that there's going to be an extra month. The Torah calendar does not show that there's going to be an extra month. So where are we on the calendar, and which calendar is correct? So we have to take all of these into consideration, because what if God is using an earlier calendar and everybody's looking farther down the road because of another calendar, but God's using a different calendar? So I want to look at this calendar, and this lines up with 40 days from January 11th, and this is what I am seeing connected to the beginning of Purim on February 21st, 1260 days to August 2nd, 2027. Revelation 12:6, and the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Now I want to show you the asteroid Esther on the head of Virgo, because there's a certain time frame that fits this, and there's another time frame that does not fit this. Okay? So if you go to Stellarium and you look at the asteroid Esther, which this asteroid was named after the big biblical persona of Esther. Okay, so this asteroid was named after Esther of the Bible. It wasn't just given randomly. This was given because of the biblical person of Esther. And so this asteroid is on the head of Virgo starting around January 11th, because it's coming in here and it's just settling on the head of Virgo around this sign of January 11th. Now, if you go forward 40 days from January 11th, Esther remains on the head through February 20th. Okay? Esther remains on the head. As soon as we go past February 20th, Esther is going to be leaving the head of Virgo. And by only March 10th, Esther is clearly not on the head of Virgo any longer. Okay? So this sign of Esther being on the head of Virgo really only happens during approximately this 40-day period from January 11th to February 20th. And as soon as we go past this time frame, then within only 20 days later, the asteroid Esther has left the head of Virgo. Another part of the heavenly sign of all of this is that on January 11th, the planet Mars was right in the crossbow of Sagittarius, which represents a war. Mars being the planet of war in the crossbow of Sagittarius. Is this the beginning of a final countdown or of a war in heaven? And 40 days later, on February 20th, now there's a perfect conjunction of Mars and Venus on February 20th. This is the closest they get together exactly on this day. Does Venus represent the bride of Christ or the bright morning star? And Mars, the planet of war, is making war. Okay? And does this mark the beginning of the Great Tribulation? And there's a 40-day connection from this perfect sign here of Mars in the crossbow. And Mars now, 40 days later, perfectly conjoined with Venus. And the other part of this is what we saw with the rise of the Phoenix that started on January 11th that lasts for around 40 days. I documented this the other day, the rise of the Phoenix starting on January 11th. It makes its loop up and then comes back down under the horizon. It's only visible for around 40 days. Or it's rising for around 40 days and then it goes back. Okay? So basically around February 20th is at its highest point in the sky before it goes back below the horizon, starting again then on February 20th. So the rise of the Phoenix, starting on January 11th, taking us to February 20th. So this is the information I wanted to share with you guys from January 11th. We're still watching February 20th as a 40-day warning. The night before, Adar 13, which is shown to us in the Bible as the day, the appointed day when they were planning the extermination of the Jews, the 13th day of Adar. This would be the day before, the 12th day of the 12th month on the Hebrew calendar, 1260 days from the end of this 7-year sign, this great solar eclipse over Israel of August 2nd, 2027. So this is what I wanted to share with you guys. I pray you are blessed. This is Steve Fletcher with the Trumpet for My People, the sign of his coming revealed.